Hey there, campers. But since I'm out enjoying a nice, I think now it's like minus 15 or so, but this morning it was like minus 20 degrees, minus 25. Yesterday was a little bit colder. I thought taking a little bit the opportunity to talk about stuff that is maybe a little bit controversial because it's about food. I started being vegetarian last year, last summer pretty much. On and off a little bit, but basically in autumn of 2019, I pretty much decided, okay, I'm gonna go vegetarian with just cheese, butter, and eggs, stopping me from being vegan basically. So it's a lot of nuts and beans and all that kind of stuff. Last year, since it was a quite mild winter, I came through it quite fine. And in the summertime, I eat a lot of salads, and obviously eat also still quite a bit of cheese, not that much, but also eggs, like about 3-4 eggs a day, not super much. But I'm also outside all the time, but the temperatures are quite mellow, quite mild. But in the winter time, especially now when I see it's like really, really getting cold, like minus 20 and so, I see that I have a problem. I still remember in spring of 2019, I was out on a tour in the mountains and we had a conversation, like my guests and I, about being vegan and that it shouldn't be that hard, and a lot of pro athletes do it and whatnot. And I said, well, yes, that applies to those kind of people, but the problem is if you're outdoors all the time in the winter and all that, it doesn't really work that well. Well, I couldn't back that up in terms of why I thought so, but now since I tried it, I pretty much can talk about it. The problem is fibers. It's the simplest version about staying warm in cold weather is empty your bladder as much as you can, because if you don't, the bladder has to constantly stay warm, which basically takes away body heat, because it has to keep vital things warm, so if you just empty your bladder, you don't have to worry about it. Same applies for the stomach. If you stop like I do now and eat a little bit and start going, you usually feel much colder, even though you were just next to a fire and potentially have warmed yourself up. But the problem is your stomach starts working. And if your stomach starts working, that means it takes energy out of your system. And if that happens, then you usually tend to get cold. So you basically have to generate body heat by just moving around and whatnot, This same problem I'm starting to face quite much with all the fibers that I take in by eating beans and also nuts and whatnot, a lot of high fiber-based diet, which takes a toll on the stomach, because the stomach always has to digest something, and that equals to losing body warmth, and that I can feel in my hands immediately, getting cold as hell on my hands all the time. Now it's not so bad because I was just quite warm since I moved around stuff and whatnot, and the temperature is, like I said, it's like minus 15 right now, so it's not that problem. But as soon as it gets into the extreme range, minus 20 and downwards, it's tough. So I'm actually gonna have to adjust my diet to eat a little bit meat again. I have friends who have a farm, who have an ecological farm basically, so from those guys I'm definitely going to get some meat that is properly raised, so. And I was living there for quite some time. If you check my Instagram, you can see probably some pictures popping up of some cattle that I gave some milk, when they were little babies and stuff. So so I kind of have to go a little bit more into that direction, because I can see that it doesn't work the same way as, the funny thing is, the world is so divided in black and whites pretty much, when you started this topic, hey, what do you recommend using for this and that topic, you know, like if it's a sport or whatever it is. It's always like you have to use this, you have to use that. No one ever asks like, what do you need it for? What is your, where are you standing? Do you just want to try it out, or do you want to do this, or do you want to do that? Where are you living? Those kind of things are never really put into perspective, you know. There is a reason why Inuits eat a lot of seal meat, you know, seal blubber and everything like that, because they live in an area where they have those resources available. Why would they ever think of like farming? It doesn't work because it's not the area for it, you know. And that applies to us people as well. Granted, we in a modern Western society we have much more availabilities for certain things, but if you're living in Spain, you need a different diet than you need when you live in the north of Sweden. Granted, I'm living in the middle of Sweden, but I'm outdoors all the time. I'm living in a goddamn tent, you know. I'm waking up with the outside temperature. You know, I'm not running my stove all the time. So those kind of things I have to put into perspective, you know, or put into the calculation of what I am consuming. In the winter time, it's quite often that you crave more fat. You crave like you know, salty stuff. You know, like eating chips and stuff like that. And also in the other directions, sugar, fast energy, you know. So those kind of things. I don't want to take that usually, you know, like sugary stuff, because I kind of went away from it. But I actually started to drink like Pepsi once in a while again or whatever. Ooh, controversial as well, because I actually like Pepsi instead of Coca-Cola. I prefer that, but yeah, that's how I roll. But yeah, so in terms of like cold weather, you really have to be thinking about like what's your fiber intake, what is your calorie intake, but also what is your fiber intake, because that can affect your body in a different manner. When you're really going extreme sports, then of course your fiber intake can be a little bit higher, because you're also running an engine that is like high maintenance, you know. If you're like I am now, I'm getting a little bit away from running and stuff like that, because in the cold weather you can't really do that. It makes no bloody sense whatsoever. So I'm running my dogs pretty much every day on shorter distances, but I'm running them every day, and I'm fixing stuff. At the moment I'm fixing a snow scooter, for example, you know, those kind of things. Just stationary, and you have to stay warm to do those kind of things, you know. So this black and white thinking of like, yeah, you have to be vegan, you have to be vegetarian or whatever. It is preferable, definitely. You should, if you can, stay away from all those manufactured bullshit, you know. Granted, I'm a little bit it's a bit odd for me to talk about it, because my dog's eating like high energy dry food, you know, and also minced meat that is manufactured from slaughter leftovers. So those kind of things, and including salmon that is farmed, you know. But that's unfortunately the way it is, you know. In the summertime, I was getting fish from you know, ocean fish. That was just leftovers, you know. I got those kind of things for my dogs as well, but the guy was kind of shitty. Started like, just wanted to give me like half of what he had, you know, because some other guy wanted to have some as well, and then it was not worth it in terms of drive and stuff like that, driving. Because it meant for me like to drive 50 kilometers for 20 kilos of fish that I could only get like once a week, you know. It was a lot of codfish and stuff like that, really good stuff. But it was not worth it, you know. So now I'm back to minced meat. Also, it has beef and salmon and all that kind of stuff in it. In a smaller quantity, it's actually not that bad. But of course, if you would only feed the dogs with that, you know, with a farmed salmon in it, it can be quite a problem in terms of like all the antibiotics and all that kind of shit that they put in, you know. But regardless of that, definitely like, you know, it's just like, you know, basically the reason why I'm talking about it is because think a little bit about your diet, not just like what you hear and what all the other people say. You know, a lot of those kind of trends in brackets, you know, they also come from areas like California. It's constantly warm there. You can't apply the same diet from those kind of people, even if they're high, you know, functioning athletes or whatever. You can't apply those kind of techniques, those kind of diets to people that live in areas where it can also get cold. How, granted, a lot of people live in apartments. It doesn't fucking matter whatsoever. If you live in an apartment, who gives a shit? But if you're actually out on longer tours and stuff like that, so it's an outdoor channel, you know. I'm in the outdoors here, you know. I'm talking to people who are actually outdoors, you know. You guys have to think a little bit about what you're using, you know. Um, if you just if you go out on an expedition, you barely take meat with you anyway, you know. So it's mostly you supplement with butter and with cheese, you know, regardless of that, you know. But for a regular diet, um, it's definitely preferable if you have a low fiber diet, you know, not just like, you know, cramming beans and whatever, because you're waking up the next morning still with a full stomach that still has to work, and you were freezing your ass off in your sleeping bag because the sleeping bag was just on the brink of being suitable, but your body was just constantly trying to burn whatever is in your stomach, you know. So you're waking up like totally exhausted because you didn't get a proper sleep due to the fact that you were cold as shit, and your body is still digesting, you know, whatever you put in there, you know. So you're waking up like with hands that are just, you know, and now really fully functioning, or your whole body's not fully functioning. And it takes a lot of time for the body to just get rolling when you're just cold as shit, you know. You can't really work properly. And it's the same like if you're having an outdoor work, you know, where we're actually outdoors 8 hours a day, you know, like even if it's just a postal service job, in brackets only, you know, it's a proper job, you know. So, but or if you're working other jobs, you know, that are meant for you to just be outdoors all the time and actually functioning. So you have to think a little bit about your diet. All right, that's pretty much it, you know. I have no recommendation other than be careful on what you're eating. Yes, be vegetarian if you can, you know. Stay away from processed meats and all that kind of stuff, you know. But also think a little bit about like what you're doing. So for me, that means I definitely have to cut the fibers way more, and actually I used to have a diet like when I was living in cold areas, and so I was eating a lot of like really like, because I was poor as shit, you know, minced meat with some vegetables, extra oil in it, you know, and very rarely carbs to it, you know, because I was just outdoors running dogs. Granted, you still kick and run and whatnot, but it's still a um, fairly low carb diet works very well for it, you know, and eggs and all those kind of things, you know, all like animal protein with um, vegetables to it, you know, to get vitamins and all that kind of stuff in it, and minerals. Hey guys, what are you doing? So, but yeah, and then opposite, I was also eating like pancakes, like hell, you know, in the morning sometimes, just to get quick energy in as well. So I kind of like in the end I balanced it out quite much, because then I got like cravings and stuff like that. I didn't want to eat it regularly, but I still had a lot of sugar intake back then. So that was back in the days, you know. Now I'm pretty much quite away from all that kind of stuff. So it's really more like peanut butter in particular. Very good source of like getting fat in. Um, it's that's one, and a lot of butter, to be honest. Those are the kind of things that I'm eating a lot of. And then I'm drinking my cup of coffee once in a while, you know, and then just cramming in actually taco wraps that I'm using, because it's not so much carbs, you know. So, and then butter on it and cheese, or the other way around is like just peanut butter on it, you know, those kind of things. And then obviously proper food in the evenings, you know, dinners and shit. So that's pretty much what I'm eating, and a lot of nuts in between, you know. So I'm sure as hell getting fibers, but um, and also like couscous and all those kind of things, you know. It just stays in the stomach way too long, and it causes me at least to have much more problems with with my limbs to keep them warm, basically. Alright guys, have a good one. I know it was a long ass rant, but I hope I can shine some light on a little bit of what to eat and whatever. If you have any questions or so, just put it in the comments. Just not bitch about like that I'm eating meat again or whatever, because that doesn't really help, does it? Have a good one.